The CEO Diaries, powered by Harper Ellis Hair Co.
All right, welcome back to another episode of the CEO Diaries. I have another exciting episode. If you're watching, you can see her, but if you're listening, I have Aubrey Stewart.
Hello.
Back on the podcast today. She was on a few episodes ago. I've lost count at this point. We're having so much fun. But today, we actually decided this is not really a part two to the first one, but we wanted to do an entire episode over branding because this is, of course, one of our number one questions. I feel like, over time, Harper Ellis brand has just gotten so strong. And those of you that don't know, I'm going to give you a little backstory. Aubrey's been with Harper Ellis Hair Co. for about 2 years, almost 2 years. And she's our branding expert, she's our marketing strategist, you name it. She does everything as far as in that realm, as far as marketing and social media. And so I'm excited for you guys to kind of hear from her. Everyone loves to hear from her. She teaches in all of our Harper Ellis classes, but we're going to talk about branding and what it means to us. And I think this episode is going to be so valuable for you guys that are struggling with this, because I feel like we sort of have this different approach with branding and different mindset than other people are just going to teach you. Like if you were to Google video about branding,
right,
they're going to give you the common answers, but we're going to kind of give you a different outlook on branding, hopefully.
Yeah.
So I'm going to let her dive in. She's already told, if you don't know her, go back to the other episode because you've got to listen to that one first and listen to the story there and how she came about. But we're going to dive right into branding.
Let's talk about it.
Yeah.
Cool.
Wait, first, what's in your cup?
So Casey G made me a tea.
A tea? Like an energy tea?
An energy tea,
okay.
And it's cherry limeade, and it's so good.
It looks really refreshing.
Yeah, I feel so summery.
Yeah.
What are you drinking?
I'm drinking a shaken oat brown sugar shaken oat espresso from Starbucks. It's honestly my go-to. We have a lot of really good coffee places around here, but I love Starbucks coffee.
So good. And 7 Brew.
Yeah,
so
I don't.
good.
I'm not a huge fan of 7 Brew
Because it's too sweet for you.
It's something. Yeah, I like really dry champagne. I like really dry wine, and I like my coffee to taste like coffee.
Yeah, and that does.
And it does.
So one of the things that I feel like Harper Ellis does like really well with our branding education specifically, we really kind of step away from that traditional idea of like branding being your logo, your font, and your color scheme. Like, yes, those are so like that's a priority of it, but to us it's psychological. And I really like that we talk about that because now more than ever, brands are so much more complex. Like in every class we talk about, people don't buy from businesses anymore, they buy from other people. And so something I love, especially in the hair industry or beauty industry, is you have such an advantage over the typical person who's branding themselves because you are able to bring in your personal style, the things that actually drive you to do what you do, the things that motivate you, the things that set you apart from others, like mixed in with your craft. And I feel like whenever stylists realize that about themselves, that's when you can see that shift.
Yeah. Like major growth.
Yes. And they start getting their dream clients in their chair. They start making their dream income. They're excited to go to work. They're excited to post on social media. And I feel like that once you kind of wrap your mind around that, it changes everything, which is what we're going to talk about today.
Totally. And I feel like, kind of a side note to that, if you're sitting here and you're like, I don't even have a brand. I don't even know where to start. And if you say you go and like hire a professional to help you, what they're going to do is they're going to build out basically a PDF, and it's going to have like your fonts, your brand colors, and maybe some like inspo pictures that go along with like your brand scheme and stuff like that. To us, we feel like yes, those things are important, but if you go and hire a professional, likely at first that's kind of all they can do for you.
Yes, absolutely.
Because they don't know you. They don't know what you're trying to achieve. They don't know your voice. They don't know, what message you're trying to get put out to the world, basically. And so I feel like, especially since you and I have worked together, the definition to this has changed so much. I know for me, I'm sure you were born branding genius, but
no.
But for me, I know the definition has completely went because I've realized that our success is growing the faster or the more that we become us. Like, and when I say, we'll talk about what I mean by becoming us and showing the world who we are. But, just a little side note to that, because I feel like a lot of people confuse that stuff is really important, like the colors and the fonts and stuff like that, but that's just not all there is to it. So
yeah, and I think like something to mention is people get so caught up on like those aspects of it. And there's this like weird order that people have in their brain of, I have to have my logo before I can start XYZ. I have to have my logo, I have to have my brand colors, I have to have whatever. When sometimes I feel like it's the reverse. Like you need to establish who you are, who that dream client is, how you want to be perceived before you can step into like the standard branding, aesthetic, whatever.
Totally. And I know a ton of people, especially I'm thinking hairstylists specifically on Instagram, that their brand is so strong, but they don't even have a logo.
Oh, yes.
And which is great, which is fine.
Totally fine.
Maybe they own a business and they don't need their own personal logo. So what I'm trying to say is it's that part of it really isn't that important.
No, it's not. I think what, in my opinion, the key to branding yourself is consistency. And I don't mean consistency of like how often you post. I mean being consistent in how you show up. And so that's choices, like that's every choice that you make. That's down to the type of pictures that you post, the outfits that you are wearing in your pictures, the voice that you type with, like in your captions, the way you punctuate, capitalization, do you use proper grammar? Like literally every detail that you choose, as long as you're consistent with it, that's going to be what builds your brand.
You can't have multiple personalities.
No.
On social, and I feel like people are kind of guilty of that. I'm saying that out loud because I've been guilty of that in the past, because not having multiple personalities, although I probably do. Okay, let's be real. But I mean on social media, you can't show up every day kind of a different person. I've been guilty of that because I wasn't sure who I wanted to be on social media.
Well, and we're told so many ideas of you need to be professional, show up professional, like show up talking a certain way, only showing certain parts of your life, whenever in reality like your superpower is you the other 80% of the time. And so I feel like that's something that you really had to kind of like shed that, especially I feel like last year we had like a big, I don't know, like
trauma
question mark. No, but like you had a moment of like, what am I doing? Yeah. Why am I doing this? And I think whenever you ask yourself why, that's whenever so many like shifts happened. And so if you feel like right now, especially if you have been posting consistently, if you feel like I have been busting my ass for 6 months, trying to show up how I want to be seen, but you still don't feel like that's right, you're probably not being as authentic as you should be. And I feel like that is a very valid thing to kind of get over, because we all want to be seen like the best, and we want to create content that's perfect.
Yeah, very polished,
but the thing that's going to break you through is going to be showing who you are really.
Yeah.
So, and that sounds so cliche.
Yeah.
But it's true.
It is cliche, but people aren't getting it because they're not showing.
Right. It's like too cliche. Yeah. So people don't get it.
People aren't getting that, like, oh my gosh. And, it's kind of something that might help this make sense, Something about me, and I know Aubrey will agree, you're probably gonna laugh, but I'm very, very committed to a brand.
Yes.
Like if I'm in, I'm all in.
Right.
I will just leave it there. I'm very committed. But when I say that, and I know it's not, this is kind of far-fetched because I know that I hope this is relatable when I say it, but one of my dreams, my number one dream for a while was I wanted a brand new home, or I wanted a new home, because I wanted to be able to sort of be on brand even when and some of you guys are like, you're nuts. Like, why does that even matter? And it doesn't necessarily matter. It's not a make or break on your success. No. That's not what I'm saying. But I wanted to sort of make, my aesthetic, like that way it was very recognizable.
Yes.
And, so I redid my home first, and we bought a home and remodeled it. And I was very, careful about the way that I sort of put it together and the decor, and because I wanted it to be very recognizable. Mm-hmm. Well, then, fast forward to now we have a brand new headquarters, and a lot of people walk in there and are like, it looks like your house, Tara. And I'm like, I know, but that's on purpose,
yes.
So I'm just kind of using that as an example because I'm so committed to wanting my things to be very recognizable, and we'll talk about the psychological part behind that in a second. But, I wanted everything to be very recognizable, and that's down to my clothing, which we posted, a few things, or a reel the other day about, why do I wear all black? And that's not just because I like black, I do, but, it's recognizable for me. People know that I do that, and that's a brand for me. And so it's kind of down to like how you walk and talk.
Right.
You know?
And I think something like that's worth mentioning with that is with your uniform, you're all black. You do that, the recognition, but also so you don't have to overthink it. Like, it is authentic to who you are.
Yeah.
And so even whenever you are showing up as work Tara, it's like easy. It's not being like, oh my God, like what do I look like for work Tara? You're just Tara, and Tara wears black.
Right. Yeah. And I just feel like that's a huge part. That's actually always been a big part of my brand.
Yeah.
And something like actually Kirsten's a master stylist in our salon and an educator with Harper Ellis Hair Co. She is her brand is just now scratching the surface. So if you don't follow her, go follow her, because you guys are about to probably see a huge journey.
Absolutely.
Career-wise with her, but it's because like her style is so strong.
Oh, it's so good.
It's so good. She's so she's got the best style in the world. Mm-hmm. And so that is her brand. Like this like cool girl style is Kirsten's brand, and it's gonna really attract the people that she wants to do business with in her chair. And so I know that's we kind of got off on a path on the another road there, but I just want you to understand that sort of your brand is just you. That's what we're trying to tell you, is just it is who you are in your everyday life and what you do day to day, and how you talk, how you walk, and how you breathe. So
yeah. Absolutely. I think something like to springboard off of that is, if you feel like right now you're not happy with your brand, one of the first things you need to do, like an exercise that Tara recommends a lot, is like, who is your dream client? And we often talk about your dream client avatar. Like, what do they look like? And I feel like this also is kind of a self-reflection exercise, if you will, because you might realize how unaligned you are, and you might not realize how many decisions you are making from the moment you wake up to the moment you walk out of work that don't align with like your dream client and basically the brand that you should be.
Right.
And so I think we should talk about like all of the tiny aspects that make up the dream client.
Yeah.
And like you might be surprised about the things that you're not doing currently to align with that.
Totally.
Like I think one of the things that you did, which I loved, was I think you named your avatars.
Yeah, she had a name.
Yeah, so yours had a name. You need to think about how old they are. What did they do for work? What are their hobbies? How do they dress?
Where do they hang out?
What do they want their hair, like how do they want their hair done? And kind of, I think you've mentioned their budget. Like,
I was gonna
think
say
about their
money.
budget. Like, what does their bank account look like? And I think whenever you sit down and kind of start there, you not only will get like a clear image of what you want, but it will also reveal, which is funny because we were just talking about this before we started the podcast, like blocks that you have yourself, like maybe things that you're telling yourself, like, I can't have that client because I'm not that. Or it might just make you realize that you are doing nothing to align that dream client.
Right.
And I feel like whenever you can get that on paper, it'll really help you start making decisions intentionally.
Yeah. And this is kind of those punch in the stomach. I think this is one mistake, or I don't know if you call it a mistake, but something I see a lot inside of our industry is all stylists are like, my dream client is that bougie client.
Every day we hear that.
And I'm like, okay, that's fine. Yeah. But let me kick you in the ass real fast. You're not bougie. And you guys have been like, well, I can't afford to go out and buy bougie things. That's not what I'm saying. Not at all what I'm saying. You don't have to have expensive things and live this bougie lifestyle to have the bougie client, but you do have to show up in the same sort of wavelength that these bougie clients are, because that's who they're going to. You attract what you are. That's just the matter of a fact.
So true.
It's the way that it is. You attract what you are. And I love Creighton for this example. Creighton Ellis, he's the hand-dyed craftsman in our salon and lead educator for Harper Ellis. He was the same way. I mean, just starting out in this industry, he was my assistant at first, and of course my clientele was the bougie client, and he quickly learned those are the people I want in my chair, because those are the people that are going to pay for hair extensions and pay for the services that I'm offering. And so it wasn't even something I out loud taught him. He morphed, and it wasn't that he was going out and buying designer. Yes, the kid has a better shoe collection than anyone I know at this point, but this is before that, guys. This is before he could afford any of those things, and this is before he knew anything about designer items or anything that you would call bougie per se.
Right.
But he acted a certain way. He walked a certain way.
It was his energy.
He knew what type of conversations to have with these type of people.
Yes.
And they're very different. And if the bougie client's not your client, then okay, let's evaluate what kind of conversations is that client having, and where are they hanging out? What are they eating? What are they breathing? All those things. And so something just kind of think about. You don't have to necessarily, if you want a bougie client, great. You don't have to go out and spend $1 million at Louis Vuitton or Gucci, but talk the way they talk. And don't change who you are, but have different types of conversations. Let's just say that.
Yeah. And I feel like something that, like, it's so easy to make a post online that aligns with that aesthetic. It's so easy to even have a photo shoot for yourself where you're dressed that way, putting off that energy. But the thing that I feel like, and I don't mean this rude, that falls short is whenever that client sits in your chair, you're not that person that you've portrayed online. And that's something that I feel like we see a lot. You can put up a mask online, you can say the right things, but whenever they end up in your chair, are you dressed that same way? Do you talk that same way that you talk online? Do you deliver like that experience? Or is it just like a normal, walk into any shop down the street and sit down and get your hair done?
And I think a barrier with that too is sometimes, and I know in the past one mistake that I've made, and I feel like this is the best way that I teach, is I teach the mistakes that I've made and what I've learned from them. But I've went out and I've hired agencies for doing my social media, and they listen to me as far as like, hey, I want to cater to the luxury client. And so I allowed them to take over my voice on social media, and it wasn't at all who I am. It may have been talking to the same client, but then when they walked into my salon in my space, I wasn't that girl that I was portraying on social media.
It's confusing.
Yeah, so I think, just sort of your attitude behind, or your personality behind the words that you're using and the way that you're sharing things, I think matters as well.
Yeah, I totally agree. I just want to kind of like talk about some things that you might not be thinking, which we touched on a few of these a second ago, but like every decision that you make on social media, and for the sake of this, I'm going to be talking about social media mostly, because that's the lion's share of it. Like, it matters. And something about like Tara's brand and Harper Ellis brand, we don't do anything by accident. Everything is a choice. Nothing is a matter of convenience. We do follow trends, sure, but for the most part, we have a very like particular image that we like keep aligned with, and it goes down to the font that we use on your Instagram stories. You will not catch me dead using a different font than the one that we use every day. We make the backgrounds on all of our pictures black on our stories. Like, these are tiny things that whenever you are intentional about them, people will catch up. And the reason that we do that is for that psychological space. Yeah. We want it to be, we don't want you to have to look in the top left corner and see the Harper Ellis logo to be like, oh, this is Harper Ellis. Because here's the thing, beautiful hair is everywhere.
Everywhere.
Any extension account that you follow, you are going to see beautiful transformations. You will never hear me say otherwise. Our competition is not who can make the prettiest hair.
No.
That's not it. And as a stylist, like, that should not be your competition either.
No.
It should be client focused. So what can we do to take up that psychological space as soon as possible? Black background, same font every time. And something I love about this is I've noticed that our ride or dies have kind of, they want to be a part of that, and they've started doing it too. And I love that. And it's that mutual benefit of like, we're supporting each other's brand. So it's just really cool to see that happen. 2, like, the way that we write our caption, never an accident. The breakdown of it, the line breaks, the punctuation, like, you will rarely see an exclamation point on Tara's copy, really, because she doesn't talk like that.
But talking periods,
she
as
does.
Aubrey says.
What's funny though is if you look at her text thread,
I do.
You can't, like, different person. But talking to her face to face, you're not a fluffy like, hey girl. You're very straightforward. Text thread, you just can't like read what you're saying because it's all spelled wrong.
Because I'm typo. Yes. I do not have time to correct myself. So if you cannot translate, then that's your fault.
You just won't last long. My second language is Tara. That's Tara's what I like to say. I'm like, no, I get it.
Yeah, it's so funny. But and you have too, like, just something to say, because I know that people listening to this are like, because I used to like hate that about myself, that I wasn't the fluffy, like, I used to sort of envy people that were naturally, because people are drawn to those kind of people, I feel like, immediately, but then after that, it's just kind of like, okay, then the real person always surfaces. Not that those people aren't real people, but what I'm saying is that's just a front. That's just a front side of a
no one's
personality.
Like that all the time.
Yeah, just a front side of a personality, and then past that, what's deeper than that? So now I've grown past that, and I don't like wish that I was like that. But if that's you and you're sitting there like, oh, I wish I was more fluffy. I wish I could get on stories and everyone would be so attracted to me. Like, don't necessarily wish that, because I spent so much time and energy on being like, oh, I wish I would, but I'm just not. And I feel like now that I've come into like, hey, this is who I am, people are more attracted to that. So.
Oh yeah, like I feel like we hear that all the time. Of like, I just love how real Tara is. Yeah. It's like, yeah, that's just how she is. Like what you see is what you get. Yeah.
That's a downfall sometimes.
Yeah, but it's so much more attainable though.
Yeah. Speaking my mind, it's got me in a lot of trouble sometimes.
We love it. It keeps it spicy.
Yeah.
I think another thing that, like, especially when you're creating content, be intentional about the trends that you follow and like the audios that you use. And what I mean by that is we are in an age of, you see like the funny videos, and like we love a good prank. Any chance that we can prank Coach, we take.
It's the best.
But it's never
now part of our brand.
It is part of our brand.
that we bully Coach Casey.
Yes. Yeah. Girls Club. Sorry, Coach. But there are some accounts that I see, and I'm not dragging anyone when I say this. I hope no one feels attacked. But people who are doing like trends or challenges or pranks, and it just feels so forced. Mm-hmm. And it's like you're just doing that because you feel like you have to or you should. Mm-hmm. And I feel like we need to shed that idea as well. Like, just because someone else is doing a trend, or you're seeing every other person in your industry, in your salon do something, like, if that doesn't align with you, don't do it. Because there is nothing that people can see from a mile away than a forced brand.
Right.
And if it doesn't feel authentic to you, it sure as hell ain't gonna feel authentic to anyone else. Yeah. And that's really off-putting. Mm-hmm. Because, not to be like a broken record, but people do not buy from businesses anymore. Mm-hmm. They buy from people. And if you don't feel authentic, you're losing that trust.
Right.
And it all boils down to trust, especially in the hair industry, especially in the niche down extension industry. Whenever it's a very vulnerable thing, usually people are getting extensions because they're insecure about something, and it's a lot of money.
Yeah.
Like, so those two things, like, to get really psychological with you guys, it starts with trust. Can they trust you financially? Can they trust you with their insecurity of needing more hair or wanting more hair or hating how they look, whatever? And so it starts with that.
Mm-hmm. And I feel like, too, sometimes it's okay that you don't, like, even if you're sitting there and like, oh, I do have a brand, but I don't love it. Mm-hmm. That's okay. Like, that's such a big part of my journey.
That's so an important thing to go through, actually.
Yeah. And I think your brand should change as you change. And, like, evolving is such a key thing. I mean, definitely staying consistent and not just like, oh, once a month dropping what you've created and then recreating. I'm not saying that. But it's okay if things change. And, even right now, Harper Ellis Hair Co., our brand is y'all are about to go, what in the hell is going on down there?
I'm so excited.
Aubrey's hijacking my brand. I'm just kidding.
A little bit, it's fine.
No, we'll talk about it in a minute. But even now, even though Harper Ellis brand is so strong, we are looking for ways to like elevate our content.
Because we've changed so much.
Yes.
In the last year.
Or 6 months even, I would say. Like, our business, you guys, and this is a total different podcast, but our business has flipped upside down in the best way in the last 6 months. Like, we are now, like, I feel like we are just a freaking well-oiled machine.
Powerhouse.
We're a powerhouse right now. But it's not by accident. We didn't just wake up one day and be like, oh, here we are. Like, we have actively made changes inside of our company to, be this powerhouse brand and grow and be so stronger. And so all of a sudden, it wasn't long ago that we kind of woke up and was like, what we're doing doesn't make sense anymore.
Yes.
We need to now, stick with the same brand, but let's evolve it into what we are developing into.
And who our people are.
Yeah.
Like, I feel like that was a big part of it. Like, in this kind of refresh, whatever, evolve, wherever we are, it's because of our people, like the Harper Ellis family. I feel like it's a big part of it.
Yeah.
And representing them and the people that we love and also the people that we want more of.
Right, definitely.
Yeah.
And, I've changed, even as like the owner, and, you know, I'm a different person than I was a year ago. You know,
You're not the Tara that I met when you hired me.
No. Yeah.
Totally different. I look back at videos and I'm like, your voice doesn't even sound the same.
know.
Why does your face look different? Like, why is everything about you different?
That's vocal cord damage from all the teaching I've done. In that.
I call it her Miley Cyrus voice.
It's a Miley Cyrus voice. It's like permanent now.
I love it.
But no, and like I've changed, and I think I've, you know, just to be honest with you guys, I've become more comfortable with who I am. And I've maybe just now figuring it out. I'm embarrassed to say that I'm 32 years old, but you know, it's just, it's the truth. And so now that I'm figuring it out, I'm like, okay, how can I show that now, you know, to the world? Not that I have something to prove, but because no one can compete with your brand.
Right.
And that's the thing. Now we are to this level of success with Harper Ellis Hair Co that we never look at competitors. I can literally say that and honestly say that.
Me too.
We might do market research as far as like, you know, making sure our pricing stays competitive, maybe. Or we might make sure, you know, we're keeping up to date with new products and stuff like that. But like, never. I used to be so consumed with that. I used to spend my nights like in bed. I used to could not sleep at night because I would go to our competitors' Instagrams and social media platforms and just be like, oh, I'm not doing what they're doing, or you know, that's why we're not big like they are, because we're not doing this and that and that. And that, if you're doing that, not only is that such a waste of your time and energy, but you will never get there. You will never get, I don't even know where you're trying to go, but you will never feel like, okay, I'm doing this.
Right.
But the minute that I like stepped away from looking at other people and said, okay, who actually are we?
Right.
We now, some of those big companies I used to lay at bed at night and think about, they can't compete with us.
No.
And it's just finally because people are coming to us because we are us. And that's just that simple. People come to us because they are like, what we're offering is very authentic, and you know, you just can't compete with that. And so when you guys figure out how to do that yourselves, no one else can compete with you either. And not that competition is important, but I mean, competition, if you're not, I hate that like community over competition phrase, which you're not surprised that I hate that.
No.
That is so dumb.
Right.
Like, it's just a dumb way of thinking. I just think it's kind of like a not very intelligent way of thinking.
Right.
Like, I understand what they're trying to say as far as like collaboration. You know me, I'm a big believer in collaboration.
Yes.
I'm very careful about who I collaborate with because not everyone aligns with your brand.
Right.
Or your morals. Right. But past that, you know, you do have competition. You have
that's okay.
Basket. It's okay. It's like the nature of humans. You know, you've got a basket of clients, especially in your community, that are going to come sit in your chair, and they have 50 choices probably in the same corner that you're working on. Huh. And so what is going to make you different from everyone else and make people want to come to you? And I think you got to ask yourself that to figure out what your brand's going to be. So.
And like, that doesn't mean that you're talking bad about other people's brand. You're not supporting them. Another thing that I have kind of figured out, and this is a lately thing for me, is your own personal style, like your clothing. And I sort of change. I like conform into different styles, and I think that's okay too. But I've learned that this is a big barrier between people and finding their own brand. And so, and you guys already know what to do, because you're already seeing these people. Just think about, just like close your eyes, think about the people on Instagram or, you know, any social media platform that you're like, wow, it's like you see things out in the public and they remind you of these people. Yes. Or it's a psychological thing. I mean, you think about them all the time, or you log on Instagram and boom, there they are. You don't have to really visually see what they're posting, but you're like, oh, there they are again. Yes. That's because their brand is so strong. And so one thing that I noticed not long ago is like something about these people that they have in common is their style, like their own personal style. And that doesn't necessarily have everything to do with clothing, but a lot of it is. Yes. Their own personal style is very established. Like you just know what it is, and it's very consistent, which we did mention, you know, the all black earlier in the episode. But I think that is one thing, you know, talking to stylists throughout all of our classes that we have is, you know, they will say like, oh, I need a new wardrobe. And and I don't like downplay that. I'm like, yeah, you might need to like go and evaluate, like, what am I putting on every day? What am I going to work in every day? Something Kirsten and I said last night, Kirsten and Britton have been helping me
sort of like take out the old in my closet that I don't want to wear anymore. And they're young and cool, and they've been telling me what's not cool anymore and what is. And so find some people like that in your life if you need to.
Yes.
And they've been, you know, sort of just kind of reconstructing my closet basically, so I can easily grab things that are, you know, a better choice than what I have been. And so Kirsten last night, she was like, you know, she was rearranging things so it was like easy for me to grab, and it was like a lot of my accessories.
Yes.
And she was like, it's just wild, like I love that we're doing this, and I love that I'm getting to be able to help you do this, because it's a look good, feel good thing. And it was funny to hear that out of her, like so much growth out of this girl. She's 21 years old, but she's like, look good, feel good. Like she was like, every single day, she's like, success to me, and she said this in her podcast if you listened, she was like, success to me is to be able to wake up every day and not cry. And what she meant by that was like that her image is so important to her, and she didn't have it for so long, so she was upset every time when she would get ready to go to work because she didn't feel the way that she wanted to feel. Yes. And so look good, feel good. And I think that is one of the number one steps. You can't create this brand without figuring out what is your personal style. So
yeah. And I think something that's like really important, not to get so deep right now, but I'm going to, is like realizing that no matter how you are right now, you deserve to feel that way. It doesn't matter if you've gained weight, lost weight, had a baby, started a new career, got out of a relationship. You deserve to feel good. Totally. And to like show up as that dream version of yourself, because yeah, like you deserve it as a person, but your hard work deserves it, like as from your branding standpoint. And you will never get to that point where you feel perfect or deserving, quote unquote deserving to look that way, because there will always be something that you aren't, that is like in the way. And I don't mean that bad, I don't mean that negatively, but like you just need to stop waiting. Jump into it. Don't be like, I'll buy that wardrobe when I lose 15 pounds.
Right.
Because there's that mind shift that you'll have of when you do start looking that way, that maybe you'll realize, I don't need to lose 15 pounds.
Right.
I just need to dress in a way that I feel incredible. Or maybe showing up as that best version of yourself will motivate you to make those changes that allow you to maybe lose 15 pounds, or maybe just improve your health, therefore improving your mental health. Like it's all so connected.
Very.
And I think especially as women, we set those weird hard limits that I'll deserve that change whenever I do this.
Right.
And if you need to hear that right now, like don't wait.
Right.
Like this is us telling you don't.
Totally.
Because you'll never get there. And I don't mean that in a mean way.
No.
There will just always be something else.
Absolutely. I mean, that's incredible, because, you know, I mean, even myself, I feel like, you know, I've been trying to get on this like workout journey for my whole life. And I'll start and I'll stop, or I'll start and I'll quit is what a better word. I'll quit and I'll start and I'll quit. Yeah. And, you know, it was always that aspect of my life was such a barrier of like, well, I'll do this when I'll do this. Right. And I'm on week 2 of working out right now, which I'm proud of.
We're so proud of you.
Yeah, hopefully I keep going, but, and I'm going to keep going, but, you know, it's never going to be perfect. And that's what I love, that we do an exercise inside of our education. It's called the Wheel of Life. And it's basically it's a pie chart in different categories of fulfillment, you could say. And so, you know, I could refill out one of those Wheel of Lives every week, and one of my little categories would be almost empty sometimes, because it's a roller coaster, and success is just such a juggling act. But I think like making those small changes, you know, just like I need to go to bed earlier and I need to work out in the morning. Well, I started with working out in the morning. I'm still not going to bed earlier, but this next week, my goal is to be in bed every single night by 9 o'clock. So it's not ever going to be perfect. Just like make small changes and small goals to equal the big picture. Right. But all that has everything to do with your brand. And I think that's what people don't realize.
It's all connected. And I think like something, if you're really struggling with self-worth and like self-image, you know, skewing in your mind, and that's why you feel like you're not able to establish your brand. Like we were actually just talking about this yesterday, like romanticizing everything that you're doing and like romanticizing the content that you're creating. If you have to step into like almost an alternate reality version of yourself, like be delusional at the beginning, that's fine. We are giving you permission to be ridiculously delusional, act like you are already making that 6-figure salary that you want, act like you already have the wardrobe that you want, act like you already have all your dream clients in your chair, and that will like give your brain permission to shift into that version of yourself.
Right.
And then one day you'll wake up and you won't have like trick yourself.
Yeah. You
won't have to make that decision. You won't have to be like, okay, I'm gonna pretend like I have like my dream client back to back today, because either you'll have it already or your brain will just be wired in that pattern.
Yeah.
I think it's so much more mental than people realize, like making that choice.
Definitely.
And sometimes it's giving yourself permission to.
And I love that. I know recently I've found you're gonna find your brand in these, it's almost like finding your personality. Like I feel like that's kind of what we're saying.
It really is.
But sometimes you'll find your brand in the weirdest places. Like I saw this the other day. There was a girl on Instagram and I looked at her and she had, tons of followers, which does not matter, by the way. But her brand was so pronounced, and I started to look through, and I quickly realized that her brand was created on like success, but also mental health, and the fact that she sort of struggles with mental health, and that has become her brand. And so I was just thinking, I'm like, she has found what she's passionate about truly, and it's not things that you would even realize. And she's built a brand on that. And so, be careful about that. Don't build brands on things that you think that just because other people are doing it. Right. But if you're like, I want to make awareness around, and that, just whoever, you just should figure out who you are. And that's then capitalize off of that. And there are aspects about myself I'm still not quite there yet. And I'm still growing and learning and figuring it out. And I feel like in the next year, even my brand is going to evolve even more, and that's what it should be doing. But find your brand in places that you won't expect,
like the struggles.
Yeah,
because the struggles are what make you real, and that invites other people who are struggling with those same things to connect with you, and you feel safe. Like you become a safe place where people can be authentic, because at the end of the day, we all just want authenticity and to be seen as who we are. Yeah. And so I love that, because she gave herself permission to use something that is a big part of her life, is a big part of her struggle, and turned it into like a superpower, like, quote unquote. Totally. I love that. I think that's amazing. Yeah. I think that's something that especially hairstylists, like the things in your life day to day that you feel like are so boring and mundane are the things that are going to set you apart. Like we're in this is kind of a sidebar, but I think it's worth mentioning. We're in the age of like everything is content. People want to see the nitty gritty parts of life. They want to hear about the struggles. They want to see the boring things, because people are so tired of polished, overly, perfected, overly filtered. But we're also like, we're just curious. People are curious. And so as much as you're willing to share, you can really profit off of that, benefit from that. But what I love about like the beauty industry is everything that you guys do is so interesting. Like mixing toner. I say this like in every class. I don't know anything about toner, but my God, will I look at every formula someone shares and be like, oh yeah, saving that. Oh yeah. I will never do someone's hair in my life. But if you go on my Instagram saves, it's just like so
true.
But and that's everyone. That's not just me. Like that was me before I worked for a hair company. Right. And so what I want you guys to really like keep in mind is every little part of your day is worth sharing if you're comfortable with it. Like if it matters to you, if it's interesting to you, it's interesting to someone else. Even if it's not interesting to you, if you've like done a full foil and you've got like 1,000 foils in someone's head and you're like, I should post this on my story. Yeah, you should, because that's really interesting. Yeah. There's nothing too small.
No. And there's okay too, to a flip side of that, to have a privacy box. Like, yes. I totally do. You guys see what I want you to see on my social media. Yep. I definitely have a privacy box, and there's things that I will never share. And it's, whether it's my kid, I share my kid, but, there's some aspect of Fletcher's life that I don't share. Yes. And because I don't want it out there. And same with mine and my husband's, there's business things that we do. You don't have to share everything. So just figure out what your boundaries are in your privacy box, and then stay inside that and share outside of that. But the one thing about your brand and figuring it out is, I think, and we did this the other day as a team with my salon team, is we sat down around a table and we've created an environment that I feel like we can be, we love each other, but very constructive when it comes to criticism.
Candid.
Yeah, very candid. Mm-hmm. And so go and find someone that, whether it's your parents or someone that you can talk to that's going to not just like try to toot you up and give you all these compliments, but go and ask them like, can you give me, and just say, you don't have to answer me now, but can you give me 3 things about me? Mm-hmm. Like not things, I'm not looking for compliments. And tell them you're trying to build a brand.
Right.
And ask them what those 3 things about you stands out to them. Like, what are those 3 things that you love about me?
Makes you.
Yeah. And just say, I'm not looking for, you're nice, you're sweet. I'm not looking for, I need like deep answers. Mm-hmm. And find those people that'll give you those candid answers.
And that you trust their answer. Mm-hmm. Not that you feel like you have to ask them. Like,
totally, yeah.
Trust
Be careful who you ask.
Yes.
Don't ask anyone that you question, like, whether they have your best intent, your best interest.
Sure.
Be careful who you ask, but ask those questions, because I think that sometimes people see things in you that we don't see in ourselves.
Yes.
And I think those type of things are what you need to bring out with your brand. I love using like Creighton for an example with this, because in our meeting the other day, which we said this inside of his podcast too, we talked a little bit about this, but he really came into this meeting and it was like, he kind of had this ego of
I've got it.
I'm doing a great job with my social media. And yes, he was.
He was, yeah.
But there's this side of Creighton that no one gets to see, and he's hilarious. He makes me laugh harder than almost any human.
Yes.
And
he's silly.
He's so silly.
Yes.
And he's just a lot of fun, and he does not show that on social media because of his guard that he has up. And he needs to show that.
Mm-hmm.
And
we're like begging him to.
Yes. And so like the whole room like roasted him basically and was like, dude, you're so polished on social media. And that's not even, I mean, he is polished in real life too, but to an extent. And so every single person had the same thing to say. Everyone was like, you need to show your personality and how funny you are. Mm-hmm. And since then he has started to do that, and things have sort of changed for him, because he's coming into like, okay, this is who I am, and I've got to show people who I really am, not just this pretend Creighton, that I want to be, and this polished, very dressed to a T every day and edited photos and all of those things. So kind of think about that.
He gave himself permission.
Yeah.
Which I think is great.
Yeah, totally. And it's a work in progress. There are some days where I'm like, I'm not getting on my social media today.
And that's fine. That's great.
Yeah.
I would rather you only show up on the days that you like feel authentic and you feel good than forcing yourself to show up whenever you're like on your deathbed or just having a bad mental health day or you're stressed. Mm-hmm. People can sniff that out.
Right.
And you don't have to share that with your audience.
Right. Totally. And that's not for everyone. I mean, if social media though, and I know this is going to be kind of a dagger to the heart, and that's okay. That's what I'm here for, is what I've heard. But stab everybody. But if you are like, sorry, Tara and Aubrey, social media is just not my thing, then a career of you being a successful hairstylist, a career, you other CEOs out there listening that aren't in this industry but are trying to build your own business, anyone trying to build their own image, you need to go work for someone else behind the scenes.
Yeah.
Because this day and time, you have to have that part of your business, or success is not going to come to you as fast as you want it to.
Or in the way that you want it.
Or in the way that you want it to.
This is really interesting that you said that. I can't remember what brand it was, but there was a brand that I know you had purchased for, I think I had too, for years. And then all of a sudden, we got an ad with their CEO on it. Mm-hmm. And it was like she was talking about like a personal story, like her personal story. And we're like, they're figuring it out. And this is like a multi-million dollar industry that's been around for a while. Mm-hmm. And like, it was like, we were like, yeah, we knew that. Like, we've been telling you guys. People are catching on to that. Even these, like, giant businesses that you might never think about the person behind the scenes who started it, who's running it, who's making the calls.
You're seeing these CEOs, like, come out of the woodworks. Yeah. You're like, oh, that's who I have. Because you guys, they're doing this because their sales are going, not that they're... No. Not but they probably aren't where they could be.
It's the rule of it is now. Like, you aren't buying from businesses, you're buying from people.
Mm-hmm. So,
and like that's if you leave this podcast with one thing, please God, let it be that.
Yeah.
who you are is what is going to bring you success.
Right. Totally. Build your empire.
That's right.
Yeah. Cool. Anything else you've got?
You know me. I could talk forever.
We could talk
about this.
Part 3, 4, and 5 coming soon with me and Aubrey.
That's right.
That's the thing about us, is we can talk all day, every day about
life.
Marketing. This is what we do every day inside the office. But more than anything, I love when Aubrey comes on here and you guys get to hear from her. So thank you for being on here.
Thank you for asking me. I love it.
Of course.
I love chatting.
I've really, I've kind of strung her along the last 2 years. So last year, we went on tour, and I was like, by the way, you're going to be teaching.
Oh my God.
She's like, no, I'm not. I'm like,
I literally was like, no, right? No.
Totally are. And now you're just a natural. But the thing about Aubrey, she's an expert in what she does. And so I love that now she's bringing it to the forefront and teaching other people, because she's got this genius little brain that I'm excited that she gets to share to our little world. So
thank you. I love it. Like, being in this industry, I don't know if we've ever talked about this. My freshman year of college, I almost dropped out and went to hair school.
No way.
Yes. And because I love it. I love the industry so much.
Yeah.
And so, like, this is literally my dream. Like, I hope everyone that listens to this, if you come to our class, like, being able to talk about this with you is literally a dream come true. Like, I'm obsessed with it. I love what you guys do. Like, each one of you is just, like, set up to have your own little dream life. Like, truly, that sounds so cheesy, but, like,
so true.
You have so much in front of you. Like, in this day and time, the way the industry is, the way social media is, like, you have all the tools to just live a really freaking amazing life. And it psychs me up so much.
Yeah, I know.
I love it.
It's
fun.
It's what drives our train every day. So
it is.
Totally. Hairdressers are the coolest. So
they are.
I'm a little biased.
Well, I'm happy to be here. I'm a little biased too.
Well, thank you guys for listening, and we'll see you next time.
Bye.